Please Don't Summon Demons with Your Children is the name of tonight's ghost story. Now, the official name for this story is called A Conjuring Book for Christmas, and it's straight out of the book The Demonologist. And for those who haven't read The Demonologist, it basically is just an outline of the career of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous demonologist. Now, you know it's real when they have to be called in, so let's go ahead and get into the story. Now, our story begins in May 1978, and of course it would be the 70s because the craziest shit happened during that decade anyways. But I digress. Ed and Lorraine Warren are overseas in the UK doing some speaking engagements. They go on a couple of tours and they get done a little bit early, so they head back to their hotel room. And one of the things the pair do whenever they get home, whether that's to a hotel, an apartment, etc., is to check their call logs. But they check their answering machine, they screen through the calls that might come in because by now they're pretty well known in the paranormal industry and they're pretty famous for the Amityville haunting they investigated. So at this point, they're getting a ton of calls with people asking for their help, and obviously with it just being the two of them, they can't address every problem that comes in, but they do take the time to screen the calls to determine which calls they can actually help out on and which calls they need to refer out to someone else. So they go through their call logs. First call, interest in another speaking engagement, we'll put it on the back burner. The second call on the list can also be put on the back burner, but it's the third call that unsettles the pair. You see, on the opposite line was a mother, and she's absolutely frantic. You can hear the panic in her voice. Ed and Lorraine Warren are listening to the call, and she's detailing what's happening in her house, right? And you can just hear the hurriedness in her voice. Her children have been pushed. She's heard things moving around. She says her children have been touched, and there's absolutely nothing they can do. They don't understand what's happening to them, and they know the only person they can call that can help them is the Warrens. Now, the Warrens have very good discernment, and if you don't have good discernment, that's something you need to try to develop for yourself because it will save you. But because they have such good discernment, they realize that this call is urgent and it needs immediate attention. So Lorraine Warren hops on the phone immediately and tries to contact this woman. But it's weird because every time she tries to contact this woman, the phone line does not go through. So she understands that there might be something interfering with the call. So she decides to get a little bit smart and she calls the operator. The operator, being kind and understanding, attempts to help her out, but the number does not go through. Now, I won't say it doesn't go through. What I'll say is that it does go through, but nobody picks up. And it's weird because there's a certain point in the conversation where the operator has stated that it sounds like somebody is picking up the phone, but nobody's answering. The line is connecting, but there's nobody picking up, period. So that's weird. The operator, though, is like, I can't help you out. Let me call somebody who can. And they call the supervisor that the operator has. Now, the operator supervisor, again, tries everything that they can think of. And the line goes through, but nobody answers the phone. Between the three of them, Lorraine, the operator, and the operator supervisor, they've probably called this woman no less than 20 times, and no one has answered yet. And that's a bit odd because Lorraine at this point is starting to cue in on the fact that there might actually be something stopping them from being able to make contact. And that's something that she said is evident of something that can manipulate the space around them. So based on what Lorraine has experienced so far, she decides that it's time to give it a rest and she'll call the woman the next day. So fast forward to about 8 a.m. UK time, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. US time, and she calls the woman. Now, the woman picks up immediately. Now, keep in mind, again, it's like 2 or 3 a.m., and they make contact with each other. The woman is absolutely relieved. Lorraine is like, hey, I'm sorry this took so long. We've been trying to make contact with you. And the woman is like, I know. I've been waiting for your call. And Lorraine basically explains that she tried to call her 20 times, and the woman's like, hey, I get it. I waited up for you, but that is exactly what's been going on since the events in my house started happening. Lorraine is like, okay, give us some time. We'll be there. Now, fast forward some days later, the Warrens are back stateside and they're taking a drive in their car when all of a sudden the vehicle fills up with the most noxious scent. It's absolutely awful, rancid even. And the Warrens, they know exactly what's going on. But for those who don't, what tends to happen when the Warrens are about to investigate a case where there may be an inhuman spirit present is that this spirit will do something called interference. And interference is exactly what it sounds like. The spirit involved, whatever it might be, will try to stop the Warrens from coming in. And they may do this by creating the most unpleasant sensory situations possible. You might hear things, have bad dreams, the car may stall, you might smell noxious scents like decay, rot, etc. All of this is an attempt to stop the Warrens from coming to the house to investigate, because typically when the Warrens have to come in, that means banishment back to hell, and they obviously don't want that to happen. The same thing happened to the pair for a second time when they were sitting in church. Now remember, that's the Lord's house, so the fact that this entity was trying to do that in such a sacred place meant that the Warrens needed to move quickly. So they went home, packed their stuff, and headed up the road 2 hours to Maine. When the Warrens arrived on the scene, they were greeted by a family of 5. A mom and dad, Sandy and Al Foster, and their 3 children, Meg 15, Joel 14, and their youngest daughter Erin 11. So typically what happens when the Warrens go to investigate a case is that Ed will conduct interviews with anyone who's experienced the hauntings or anyone in the family, and Lorraine goes to survey the premises. Now the way it works for Lorraine is that because she's a clairvoyant, her clairvoyant abilities are said to be as strong as her other 5 senses, which means that while she's walking through a site, if there's something to be picked up on, she will certainly pick up on it. And at the end, once Ed has conducted his interviews, the two will come together and share their results. So this is how the story goes. It's Christmas Day 1977, and the family is sitting around the Christmas tree exchanging gifts. Sandy Foster, our mother, gives her daughter, Meg Foster, a Christmas gift. And what is it, you might ask? Well, it's not a cell phone because it's the fucking 70s, but it's something even better. It's the gift all of the children want. It's a book of demonology and how to conjure demons. And Meg is absolutely delighted. So Christmas Day wraps up, they eat their dinner, and instead of watching a movie like a regular ass family might do, what do Sandy Foster and Meg Foster decide to do? Well, the obvious choice is to summon demons from one of the books. But because certain books have certain rituals and they may not have all of the ingredients needed to summon that particular demon, they found their household items and summoned the demons that they could. And so when nothing worked, the two went about their business and life went on as normal. Until it didn't. So fast forward some months later, and Meg is home alone with her siblings. She's in the bathroom doing her nighttime routine when all of a sudden the radio downstairs comes on very loud. She finishes up, heads downstairs, turns the radio off, looks around, turns the light off, and then goes back upstairs. No sooner than she gets to the top of the landing, the same thing happens again. So she's a little perturbed by that. She goes back downstairs, does another cursory check, turns everything off, goes upstairs, checks on her youngest sister, she's asleep, checks on her brother, he's awake. So obviously he was responsible. She confronts him, he's like, I didn't do that. And as they're talking, the water in the bathroom comes on. So she goes to turn off the water and comes back to confront her brother a second time. And again, he's like, I have literally not moved since the last time you were here 2 seconds ago. But by now, things are getting really weird in the house because the water she just turned off a second ago is running. All the faucets in that bathroom were on. Additionally, downstairs, the radio she had twice turned off by this point was up, super loud again. And now furniture is moving, and nobody is home except the 3 of them, and all 3 of them are upstairs. So again, Meg runs into her brother's room. The youngest sister gets up from her bed, and she runs in there too, and things are just going crazy. I hate to do this to you guys, but part 2 is already up, so go check it out.